what I'd like to do is start a new series called Life After Enlightenment. And I'm going to be just noting some of the changes, the differences, the contrast to before Enlightenment and after Enlightenment. And this way I can just spontaneously, as it comes, note the changes. There's so many changes. Note the experience after Enlightenment, what's daily life like, and try and remember what it was like prior. And it's the reason why I want to create a series is because it's just, there's too many changes and it's going to be too difficult to kind of make it one video and just list. So I'd like to just kind of document it with just a series where we can document some of these changes from my journey and my experience now. So let's talk about one of the changes. So one of the changes that is very profound would be the absence of a center. So even when before Enlightenment, we tend to think that there's this center to us, right? The I, that's the center. We feel like this is the center. And it's ironic because we actually, after Enlightenment, you feel centered. There's a feeling of centered, but it's actually when that is felt, this kind of feeling, I'm centered. It's actually centerless. So the feeling of being centered is actually centerless. This sense of I at the center, like you'd say, like here at the core, this is the I. When you look at that core, looking at that core, when you look for that I, well, that's what kind of starts the whole awakening. Is before Enlightenment, we have this belief of the I, and we believe that there's this I, there's this center point to me, the I, there's this separate entity. But with investigation, self-inquiry, we go to that source, we go to that center, and then, where's the center? It's not there. Where's the I? It's not there. And after Enlightenment, it's like that I, that separate self. It's that realization that it's not there. It doesn't exist. But what replaces it is the universal self. The I am everything. So it's very paradoxical, as this series is going to be very paradoxical, because it's this feeling like, yeah, you're centered, but you're centerless. There's still the body and the experience of whatever the body mind is experiencing, but that there's no experiencer in the center. It's just the experience of the one infinite source. It's the experience of the universe. So it's totally different. It's totally different. Another change is because there's no I there, there's no sense of that separate self. That separate self is gone, which is really just seeing through that there never was a separate self there. It's not like it actually disappeared. But what that separate self, you could say, is what it's made of, or what it is, what it's synonymous with, is it's synonymous, the separate self is resistance. It's resistance to what is. So once we see through and see that there is no separate self, no resistance. And when there's no resistance, there's simply allowance. And that allowance is the infinite one. It's infinity. It's infinity. It's the universal self that simply allows. It is the present moment. It's everything. It's like, how can everything resist? It can't. Everything just simply allows. So it allows that present moment. And so the experience after enlightenment is 24/7 flow. It's the flow state 24/7. It's being in the zone 24/7. But there's no someone that's in the flow. There's no someone that's in the zone. There's just the zone. There's just flow. Because like I said, is that separate self. Let's use the coffee mug here. The separate self is it's the resistance. So when we look, where's this separate self? Where's the I? And we look, get closer, and where is it? Where is it? Where is it? We can't find it. So then there's no resistance. It's like I said, it's like an illusion. It just disappears. So now there's just allowance. There's just allowance. And it's just that ever-present, infinite awareness that's aware of the present moment where there's nothing in it. And the present moment is the flow. Life is flow. The present moment is flow. It's always fresh. It's always new. So it has this kind of feeling of, as the realization is deepening, as the enlightenment seems to integrate and stabilize, it's kind of like, wow, like the separate self is it's like a beaver dam that was damming up the flow of a river. And then when it's very clear that there is no separate self there, then there's no beaver dam. And then it's just constant flow. And when there's the allowance of that constant flow, it's just a continual enjoyment of whatever is unfolding. Nothing separate is trying to resist what is. There's also no striving for trying to get anywhere. That's another change. The separate self, before enlightenment, there's the trying to get somewhere. It's very much the patterns of the mind, just the activity of the mind, you could say, is past and future. So it kind of creates this timeline, this horizontal timeline that's linear, past, present, future. It creates that, but that's not actually the reality. The reality is everything is here now, simply arising. It's non-linear. So there's a shift from linear to non-linear. Whereas before, it's always, I'm here trying to get there. And then that is completely gone. There's no I that's trying to get anywhere. It's as if there's just this non-linear, meaning it's not localized, right? Not localized, trying to go from point A to B. So it's this non-local, right? No one place. It's this non-local experience of life that is simply unfolding always here and now. There seems to be a shift where before it's kind of like the separate self is moving through life. And then that switched where life is just moving through you, but not you as in a separate self, you as in awareness. Before enlightenment, there's a I'm in life. After enlightenment, there's a shift where it's life is in I, but not I as a separate I. I as the universal I, the I of awareness, the I of infinity, the I of the universe. So those are some changes. Another change is the stillness that's always here. With the separate self, there's always a lot of activity. It's constant activity. The separate self is an activity in itself. It's a pattern. It's a conditioning. It's an activity. From the universal self, from the universal source, it's experience that activity is in the universal self. The little self is just an activity that's in the universal self. After enlightenment, there's a profound stillness that's here and now. Now, is it because the activity has subsided? Has it stopped? Possibly, because the mind, it's like it's not there. It's like a no mind state 24/7. There's thoughts that come, but they're all seen. And they always seem to be about just kind of like expressing, like the thought comes up and it's an expression. But for the majority of the time, it's very silent, just sitting. That's just a few seconds, but it goes on for minutes, hours. We're just silent, no activity. Just the stillness of awareness that's aware of any thoughts or feelings or bodily sensations or perceptions. It's aware of it all. So it's this stillness. But on the outside view, from someone watching, it looks like there's another person, there's another body very active in the world. So it's, again, this paradox. There's so much activity. There's so much involvement still. Not like you're just sitting at home, just meditating, doing nothing. It's like you can, and you'd be profoundly happy doing that. But you're also happy serving others. And while there's this activity serving others, which is very active, there's a stillness that's at the center of that activity. It's kind of like a storm where there's so much activity on the outer. The appearance of the storm is so active, but there's a stillness at the center. It's so loud on the outside, but there's silence at the very center. It's more and more aware now in science discoveries that at the center, we go down, break things, atoms, particles, neutrons, like all the down to the smallest. And what's in that? It's nothing. It's empty. And just like that, that's the enlightenment. That's the realization. That's 24/7, that going in and in and in at the very inner core, you are nothing. Whereas the separate self is always trying to go out and out and out and out and out and build up to become something. So it's again, the journey within. But even that's even kind of seen through, because there's no inside and outside. It's just, we got to use this kind of language to make a video about it. But it's seeing that you're nothing, no thing. So it's kind of cool that science is on this kind of discovery, because when they're looking at, well, what is a tree? Break it down, okay, and then getting down to the molecular level. Yeah, well, what is that? Nothing. And that doesn't make sense, because that's something that the mind can't grasp, because the mind can only grasp something. The mind can't grasp nothing. There's nothing to grasp. There's nothing to grasp. So at the core, there's nothing. At the core, there's silence. At the core, there's stillness. But to the outer appearance from other people, there's a lot of activity. They're speaking, right? But on the inside, there's no I. There's no activity. There's stillness. Speaking's happening, but there's silence. The speaking, even like right now, there's a realization that this speaking is arising out of silence. This activity, communication, this activity is happening out of stillness. This something, the topic that we're talking about, this something, this video making, it's arising out of nothing. And that you're I gotta say, you're completely aware of it at all times. You're completely aware of it at all times. What's another thing that's cool to mention? Not cool, but like significant. That's the word. Is because there's no localized spot to say, here I am. You're everywhere and nowhere at the same time. You're everywhere and nowhere at the same time. And this makes every moment very intimate, beyond intimacy. There's no like subject object kind of, there's no space. There's no distance. So I said it's intimate. Intimate is like being like very close to something. Right? This is beyond intimacy. It just is. It's one. It's intimate with the microphone, getting nice and close. But it's having the realization that this and this is the same thing. So it's beyond intimacy. It's beyond intimacy. And it's whatever is the experience is happening in the exact same space. So the experience of a fan going on up there, that's in the exact same space as these hands moving. And that's in the exact same space as the sounds. the seeing. It's all here. It's all here. It's all now. Let's leave that. I don't know how long this video is, but like I said, this is just kind of the first one. I feel like I just want to use it as a just adding to it. Hopefully, I don't repeat some of the same things, but just kind of like whatever comes out. That way, as you can tell with all these videos, they're all not planned. They're all spontaneous. There's never like, let me make a script, or let me write down these 4 bullet points, or even like, here's what I want to say, right? It's all spontaneous. Let's end it with that last one, is that you could see from the separate self prior to enlightenment with I gotta say this word, like others, there's so much planning. There's no spontaneity. Everything is planned, right? It's planned. It's trying to control, trying to control what's going to happen in the video, right? It's trying to know what's going to happen next. The spontaneity is coming from a place of not knowing. It's not knowing. It's like when you're hearing the words, I'm hearing the words at the same time. It's new, right? But even then, like, that's another change too, is there's the full awareness that there is no other. There is no other. It's just the one talking to the one, right? Just kind of it's like the movie goes on. There's still a character, but there's the realization that it's the one consciousness that's pretending to be the characters, interacting with each other just for the sake of entertaining itself, you could say. But the spontaneity is a huge shift. Everything is spontaneous. And that was kind of felt before enlightenment. It was very spontaneous. I was being very spontaneous compared to a lot of people. I was living in this unknown space, business, entrepreneurship, and I liked it. I liked not knowing. Everyone's stressing and stuff and wants to know, wants to predict, and doesn't want to take risks, wants the comfort, wants to know, and it's like, feel more alive not knowing. If you know everything, then that's boring. There's no room for wonder and awe. I want to live a life full of wonder, a wonderful life, a life full of wonder. That can only come from not knowing. So everything is not knowing. So then it's just whatever arises at that moment. So there's I guess you can say it's like this field of not knowing. And then it's like anything that's arising out of it and into the field is then known as it arises. Whereas before, I can see this with the separate self, is it wants to know everything. So it doesn't want to be in that state of not knowing. So life isn't wonderful. Life is boring. Life is boring. That's why a lot of people, they what do they say? I'm bored. I don't want to feel bored, right? It's not possible to feel bored in the present moment. Everything is new. You can sit in front of a blank wall and not be bored. Because if you're fully present, it's just the new that's constantly arising. Everything is new. Everything is unique. Unique meaning one of a kind. Every experience is unique. Every experience is new. If it feels like it's old, it's because that's just the mind. Because the mind is just recycling memories. It's just recycling information. It's just old, old, old. Even when you think that you're going to imagine something new, you can only imagine something that you've already collected. I've got these thoughts. Great. Now I got these thoughts. Now I want to imagine. You can only imagine with those thoughts. Right? You can't build anything new, create anything new. So this not knowing is just, then that's where you're living. You're living as not knowing. Not knowing. And you might think, well, that sounds kind of scary, but it's not. It's not scary. It's not scary because that fear is the separate self. That fear is the separate self. It's the survival mechanism to preserve that separate self, that illusion of the separate self. And that's kind of where this not knowing, that's kind of where that separate self goes and dissolves. It dissolves in the unknown. That's why people are afraid of the unknown so much. But it's kind of like the separate self is made of like salt. And the unknown is the ocean. It's unknown. It's also love. And it's like the ego, the separate self doesn't know. It doesn't know the unknown. It can't know the unknown, and it also can't know love. But it's like it kind of gets closer, right? And it's like gets a taste of it, gets a taste of it, gets a taste of it. And then one day it's like it doesn't leave the ocean. It dissolves in the ocean. It dissolves into love. Or you could say like that it's this ego death where the ego dies, right? But the spirit is born. Right? Where fear comes to an end and love starts. It's very paradoxical to talk about this, but where are we on the spontaneity? So these videos, they're just very spontaneous. So I don't just sit there and go, "Hey, let me just jot down these 5. Just whatever comes." And that's why I thought it'd be nice to just put together like a series of it. That whatever comes up, where I can just simply turn on the camera and kind of list some of these changes. But I thought that might be interesting to document this because it's so rare. It's so rare, and it's the ultimate human potential is this, and it continues to unfold. It's continuing to deepen. It's continuing to go on. Just when you think that it might, this is the end, it always feels like the start. It's right. So which makes sense. It's infinite. So I'll continue making these, and if you're interested in this, you'll continue watching, and whatever happens, and that's good. So I'll see you in the next one.